Hello everyone who's ever wanted to drop minibuses full of explodey stuff onto targets from a high altitude. I am BorderWise and welcome to CRAM 103 of the updated CRAM tutorials for From the Depths here in the merry year of 2025. Way to date this video, BorderWise. Now, CRAM bombers and CRAM mortars are two very specific configurations of CRAM, which is a deviation from what they're really supposed to be, which is like big naval artillery guns and that kind of thing. We're going to start with CRAM bombers. And by the way, I'm combining both of these two into one tutorial because both of them are kind of funky and weird and like niche even by CRAM standards. Both CRAM bombers and CRAM mortars can be thought of as like exaggerated and extra specialized versions of what CRAMs already are, which is something that is it's a weapon type that bullies big, slow targets. And we're discussing CRAM bombers first because that's actually the older of the two configurations. CRAM bombers date back way back in From the Depths development history. I'm going to be blunt. The whole premise is not very good. It was better back in the day, but in updates since, especially since CRAMs can be targeted by active defenses, a small CRAM bomber like what you see before you right now is not especially useful, although it is managing to land shots quite reliably on the Marauder here, except the Marauder is slow as molasses. Now, CRAM bombs are very niche, and they are pretty difficult to use effectively. It can be done. Bombers can use either bomb chutes, like what you see here. Remember back in CRAM 101. By the way, if you're a new player and you've not seen my videos CRAM 101 or CRAM 102, which is the basic overlay of all these parts, and CRAM Tetris respectively, you should go watch them. I'll wait. Are you back yet? Cool, that was fast. Anyway, so the bomb chute is a weird little thing. So it's a single barrel piece that should be used instead of, not as well as, all other barrel segments. Fires the shell very slowly, very accurately, and has a huge field of fire and traverses quickly. It is perfect for dropping shells from a bomber onto your opponent. Debatable. So there's a number of things about this. It sets the accuracy to perfect, so flawless accuracy, removes all recoil, small muzzle flash and sound, basically nothing, and greatly increases elevation azimuth fields of fire and barrel move speeds, and it fixes the projectile speed at 40 meters per second. So you'll see here, looking at the CRAM UI, the shell speed is 40 meters per second. That is incredibly slow and basically means that you have to be right on top of your opponent to drop this directly onto them. Like this, really. Now, flawless accuracy is good, but the thing is, 40 meters per second is desperately slow. So, even back when CRAM bomb chutes were introduced, a lot of people back then, and still to this day, swear by the fact that, like, using the bomb chute is a bad idea, or just not an optimal idea. So what a lot of people do instead, myself included generally, is you just use a regular old mortar barrel. So, well, not motor barrel, rather. So we've got here, different camo. That's the wrong one. Pretend you didn't see anything. This one. I've built all of these in a funky order. So this fella does not have a bomb chute. This guy just has a regular motor-driven barrel, and that's it. Now, the problem with this is that it is less accurate, but it has a muzzle velocity of a lot more. So this is the full speed 300 meters per second, which means it is much better against fast targets, especially against things like airships or something like that. So, first shot, whiffed horribly. Bear in mind, this is still a CRAM cannon, so it misses a lot. And these planes still, I have been tweaking these planes for what feels like hours. Yeah, they're still not 100% optimized. This is what I mean. CRAM bombers are kind of finicky. I swear I've never made a good one. These are, as far as test vehicles go, some of the better ones. And yeah, you can see the accuracy of this is horrendously bad. So, inaccuracy means that's how many degrees off from the center line it goes. So, combined with the fact that this is a very fast thing, that really hurts the accuracy of CRAM bombers in general. Is that going to hit anything? No, it missed. We're currently 3 for 3 for missing horribly. So, that is actually one of the major problems with CRAM bombers. They just have gotten less and less effective over the years. First it was being zapped with lambs, then it was being zapped with Seawers and missile interceptors as well, which means that slow cram shells are really not a good idea if you can possibly help it. And also now, with the stability you can see over there on the right, that really screws with cram cannons, in particular cram bombers, simply because... Is that going to hit anything? Nope, it missed every time. I swear this thing is not usually this inaccurate. This is embarrassing. Yep, that's set up correctly. Dear. So yeah, that's like, the whole premise of a cram bomber is a very challenging one. It is possible, though, and it's really, in this particular configuration, it's simple. It's a fixed cram that's pointing down. And the real challenge of making a... Oh my word, you actually hit something, you beautiful, beautiful lady. The actual challenge of making a decent cram bomber is actually making a decent vehicle to mount it on, because you need something fast, so it can, you know, bomb things, and it also needs to be maneuverable enough to actually get this gun into position, which, if you're using a bomb chute, has a lousy shell speed, and if you're using a motor-driven barrel, it has a limited traverse speed. So you see, this guy's trying to point back there, and he's just not quite working, and honestly, adding extra barrels could be a good idea here. Now, one of the better cram bombers I've made for demonstration purposes, is that going to hit anything? It missed horribly, is actually the thing I accidentally spawned in just a moment. Did I cut that? No, I like to share my mistakes, so you can feel better about yours. So this is actually probably a better setup if you're going to use crams as a bomber. But this is moving away from the whole bomber, like, concept altogether. Like, here's the thing. What is a bomber, anyway? A bomber is just, essentially, just a ground attack aircraft. It's like, if it hits something on the ground, it can be considered a bomber. So technically, this is a big gun pointing at the front of it. We're talking, like, the kind of thing that the Russians throughout history have been, like, really keen on, just mounting giant guns on tiny planes. This is actually one of the better cram bombers I feel I've made, at least for testing purposes, because first hit is good. We have popped the Marauder first time. So this, instead of using the flyover AI, by the way, I will link tutorials to my plane tutorials that I've made, especially the breadboard one, because breadboard just makes planes so much easier. This one uses Attacker on 2.0, which means it, like, flies at the enemy and then breaks off before it actually flies over them, which is very useful for this kind of thing. And if you scale this up, you can have a nice meaty cram cannon. But again, it's more cannon rather than bomber. And this, again, is pretty straightforward. You just build a cram cannon facing forward on an aeroplane. So the challenge really is building the aeroplane. Please note the 3D rotational Tetris, which is very nice. Very nice indeed. What else? So, I should mention something about cram bombers, which is the key to using them effectively, and something that I have always struggled with. Cram bombs, well, cram shells rather, inherit velocity from their parent craft. So, let's see if I can't get this to work right. So if I do this, so if we do... So you see here, the speed of this cram shell is about 424.5 meters per second. This is because pretty much all projectiles in From the Depths, at least cram shells, APS missiles, stuff like that, they inherit the velocity of their parent vehicle. So if they're firing forwards, they go faster. This is not particularly noticeable with APS because the shell speed of APS is so fast anyway. It's not noticeable with missiles, really, because missiles are self-propelled. They will, like, go to their whatever maximum speed they do within short order. It is extremely noticeable with cram shells, and this is the key to actually making a decent cram bomber, is have the gun point forward, have the craft drive like hell really fast, and then what you get is a much faster cram shell. This thing is going 124.5 meters per second faster than a cram usually could. This is important. This is where a cram bomber has an advantage over any kind of cram like craft, like a ship or an airship or something like that. And it means they can hit the target, and it means that they are less susceptible to anti-munition defenses. Like, I really should have gone all out on this and made something that goes 200 meters per second, because a 500 meter per second cram shell is no joke. It is pretty scary. So, that is the trick with CRAM bombers is actually drive towards the target and shoot at them like essentially forward, rather than dropping things on top of them, because this also means you have a little bit of distance between yourself and whatever nasty close-in weapon defenses you have there. So this is also a pretty cheap plane, all things considered. It's 20,000 materials and is like you make a slightly bigger CRAM cannon, add some more hardener pellets. A swarm of these little guys could be quite a menace. It just missed horribly. So that is CRAM bombers, the brief version of. How to build them from scratch is very finicky, so that's going to be a little bit hard to demonstrate, but I will try my best. Now, to cover mortars, briefly. Mortars are a more recent addition, and by recent I mean literally years ago the concept was added. So I have made a little demonstration mortar craft here, and by little I mean I went ham and made a barge of some kind. Whereas CRAM, you can think of CRAM bombers as pointing down, generally, apart from the thing I just showed you. Mortars point up, so these are more like, well, it's like a real-life mortar. It arcs down on the target. The key to this is just you have the thing pointing up, you set this, the aiming arc preference to prefer high or only high, and that on CRAM cannons activates a homing feature of the shell. It allows it to, like a missile, lock onto targets and kind of home in on them, although it does use the parent vehicle's detection information for that. So, also, I just realized I left a block off here. That's unacceptable. Don't mind me. Okay, so, the trick with CRAM mortars is detection. Having enough detection, you'll notice that this fella has a fair amount. There's bearing rangefinder turrets, both fore and aft. There's 4 little spread out little camera and radar trackers just on the decks. It's very low slung as well, because this is one of the advantages of mortars, is that you can build them into the hull and they can fire in pretty much any direction. They can arc it forwards, backwards, and to the sides, and you don't need a turret on them, which is actually kind of convenient and is really helpful for making something that's very flat, very low in the waterline. In combat testing this particular little boat, the mortars essentially enable it to, like, be really hard to hit with, like, APS and CRAM cannons. I say really hard, it's just they really struggle because most of this thing's underwater. I haven't made beneath the surface ship like this in a long time, and I just realized I stuffed up the bow as well. I stuffed up the bulbous bow, people. Can you ever forgive me? Don't mind me, don't mind me, don't mind me. Alright, so we should probably demonstrate this mortar with the mortar. So, here we have the mortars. I've put staggered fire on them just for giggles, and there's actually a reason for that, which we'll get into in a second. Mortars are generally more useful than bombers. They make decent secondary weapons on a larger craft, because aside from missiles, mortars are like one of your only vertical launch system option for weapons in from the depths. It's like, alright, you have a bit of extra space, you don't have room for a turret cap or something like that, or superstructure. Put some mortars down, and you can be nice and specialized against big stuff. And the thing with mortars is that they generally miss in the opening few volleys, but then, once they get their eye in, and once the pattern emerges, they start landing hits a little bit more reliably. This is not demonstrating it very well. Why am I craft all camera shy? But anyway, you will notice that, let's see, let's go follow this guy while I talk. So, set it to prefer or only fire in high arcs, and you'll see it's kind of hard to see. These guys are, that's the paddle wheel hit. You can kind of see that this thing is adjusting its course a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to see exactly, but yeah. There we go, we're bang on target. Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful! So back over here, how do you do this? Well, firstly, you want to go over here, and you want to set prefer high or only high. I tend to set prefer high just in case, I don't know, something big and slow flies over the top of the mortar craft, and we can shoot straight up into its belly. That's always nice. And you want to drop the muzzle velocity. So this is where both mortars and bombers have kind of a useful advantage. It's with these barrels. So recoil suppression, and especially flash suppression, because this reduces your shell speed, but CRAM, especially with bomb shoots, the shell is going to be slow as hell anyway, and it doesn't actually affect it that much. So if I go here, actually if I turn this off for a second, because that mortar is never going to hit us, famous last words, the maximum, wait no, wrong. So the maximum muzzle velocity here is, oh, we killed it, cool, is set to 150 meters per second. If I put a recoil suppression barrel here, you'll see it's still 150 meters per second. These things only reduce the maximum muzzle velocity of your CRAM cannon. If you manually set it lower, like what we've done here, it doesn't reduce it, which means with mortars you might as well use flash suppressors or recoil suppressors if you really need them. And that means that you could mount mortars, and I guess a lesser extent like CRAM, like bomb setups, on quite small light craft. And this is kind of almost the niche for smaller CRAMs. Not that it's tremendously effective, but it's like, again, good secondary weapon, mortars, like against like larger stuff. And there's a few advantages to mortars. Again, extreme version of CRAMs. Like CRAMs are already like hyper specialized kind of to deal with big slow surface targets, and mortars are just extra good at that. So do that, you do that. There's a few tricks to this. So let's spawn in, what should we spawn in? Let's spawn in something big and fat. What's a big fat thing? The Kingstead is big and fat. Big and fat and delicious. So mortars are pretty lethal against anything with insufficient deck armor and things which are like flatter and broader. So ironically, this mortar craft would actually be pretty vulnerable to mortar itself because it's quite flat and wide. And Onyx Watchcraft in particular do not like getting hit with mortars, and ironically, they have some of the nastier mortar craft at the moment in the From the Depths campaign. They're also good for firing over hills, so there are points in the campaign, in Neater, where you're going to have to deal with static emplacements. In particular, the Steel Strider's Liberator Cannon is absolutely terrifying, and you don't want to get shot by that if you can possibly help it. And yeah, so you can see that by the angle we're shooting at the Kingstead here, the Kingstead actually has decently, well, if not thick armor, in fact it's not thick at all, it's very Onyx Watchy, it's just like layers of metal and alloy and huge air gaps in here, which means it is reasonably tanky. We are bypassing all of that and landing shells directly into the squishy bits here, landing them on top of turret caps and just bypassing a lot of the side armor, which is very nice. We are losing, however, because the Kingstead is big and fat and just likes to shoot at us, which is very rude. How dare it. And mortars are also really good at blowing up superstructure, because they just are coming in at an angle which bypasses a lot of armor. Like, most things do not have super thick deck armor. I, these days, like to go with 4 meters of decked armor, spaced, in fact, because, like, I'm sick and tired of getting blown up from above by CRAM mortars and CRAM airships and all that stuff. These mortars should be more powerful in order to shoot the Kingstead properly. Now, there's another thing. I mentioned with mortars detection. How are you doing, girl? Oh, badly. Actually, not that badly. Hey, deck armor is working. Uh-oh, we're not as fast as we used to be. Quick, destroy the Kingstead. Detection. So, I straight up went and copied the detection settings from the Onyx Watch Anvil, which actually is a good example of mortarcraft, so we're gonna have a look at that. This mortarcraft is going to die horribly. So, you'll see the detection settings here are set to something funny. 1 to 1.8 to 1.8. This is because mortars really need all the help they can get in predicting... Well, they need a lot of time to predict the bearing and the range of a target. And I think this thing won't even be able to really hit the anvil at all, because the anvil has functional lambs these days, which is embarrassing. It also has mortars of its own. Pretty good ones. Let's see, will these things get zapped by the lambs that's now on it? Yes, it will! It's also great, mortars are absolutely fantastic for distracting active defenses, because you can just... Whoa, that missed. Almost. This is going to hurt. No, it missed horribly. I'm actually accidentally showing off how to dodge cram cannons. It's go fast or be low. Be low, be low. Look out below. But yeah, another thing with mortars though, and I experimented with this because I tried it with... What's it? CRAM, not that yet. I experimented with this very platform, this plane, which I kind of reused a bunch, which, by the way, it's, the hull I used here is the jet plane here, just made slightly wider, which is very convenient. It's not, that thing's not gonna, nope. And, mortars mounted on really fast craft have a really hard time aiming because, again, cram shells are affected by the velocity of their parent vehicle, which means if you have this guy driving around at 120 meters per second, the mortar is going to be affected by that. So if it's even driving slightly away from the target, the shell speed is going to be reduced by about 125 meters per second. And given that mortars have to be set kind of slow, because otherwise they, I don't know, they tickle the clouds too much, no way that just hit. No, it didn't. I would be very shocked if it did. Wheelies. This is really bad for our CRAM mortarcraft here. Anyway, so CRAM mortars are a little bit, again, an extreme version of the standard CRAM. They don't do well on super fast vehicles unless you point them straight forward, like my little, essentially gunship here. Okay, so there is a secret combination, and by secret I mean somebody told me this over the internet, so it's probably not that secret. It is combining mortars and the bomb-chute, and this actually is kind of best of both worlds. This little fella, let's see, CRAM mortar bomb right here. This little fella is a little attack satellite, or I guess you could call it a space shuttle, I suppose? I don't know, I painted it a little bit. But it is a mortar. It is set up as a mortar. Maximum muzzle velocity is around 100 meters per second, very slow. Prefers high firing arcs, but it has da Bomb-Chute, which means 40 meters per second velocity, and it like lobs it in a nice arc. Now, why is this good? Flawless accuracy, plus the homing effect of mortars, plus like dropping it from things on a great height, makes for a surprisingly accurate little CRAM bomb. So if we go find the Marauder again, because the Marauder is fun, what we've got here is actually probably one of the better forms of CRAM bomber that actually uses the CRAM chute. And we just have to wait for them to get over there. So we're gonna go over here. This thing does have a rotten habit of shooting itself because it can drop its own CRAM bomb directly onto itself, which is a problem. One of the benefits of this as well is that because this is so slow, it has a lot of time to adjust, and it still misses, unfortunately. That is something you have to get used to with CRAMs. They miss. They miss a lot. Let's follow this shell. Will this shell be better? I think it will be better. 8 degrees per second. Probably pretty good. You can actually see it on this one. You can see the camera kind of twitch. Just goes twitch, 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 twitch. Missed again. Deacon's Christmas. Ah! This is why people don't like using CRAM cannons, because they miss by centimeters. And it's like, it makes you cry. It makes me cry for sure. This is also why, on the CRAM barge I showed you, the mortar barge I showed earlier, there's 4 of them and they have staggered fire. Like big CRAM mortars, I would argue, are not worth it because they miss a lot and they're even more specialized than CRAMs. And if you're going to build a giant CRAM, it can probably punch its way through active defenses like the hard way anyway. So mortars are more of a secondary weapon than a primary one, notwithstanding the little barge thing I just showed you. Now that this thing's gotten its eye in, and I actually have thrown like 10 of these against crossbones, and they won, because they just keep dropping little bomblets on them, and these bomblets just manage to track their way onto the target, and it's... oh man. You could get cute as well. The problem with this setup is that you'll notice the Marauder is wiggling back and forth, which means that it's constantly changing the direction of these things, which again is one of the problems with making any kind of cramcraft, actually, you have to make them move in a way that they don't make the enemy move too much, which is why they're actually better on slower craft. If your craft is moving a lot, the enemy craft is moving a lot in response to you, and you're going to miss a lot. And that is bad. Now, demonstrating the building of a CRAM bomber is kind of difficult because it requires a lot of fiddling around. But I will be chucking all these designs up on the workshop just so people can see them. But we can absolutely build a CRAM mortar from scratch, and that will be super fun. Let's go find some nice Tetris, and I'm going to be a lazy person and use 2D Tetris for this. Please refer to CRAM 102 for why 2D Tetris is both bad and good. Volume efficient, yes. Material efficient, not in the least. Do not recommend. So let's do just a little 5x5 here. Have some of this. Just make it pure HE for giggles. And how tall should we make this? We should make this 4 meters tall, because I like things being 4 meters tall. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to do... What are we going to do here? We're going to do... What are we going to do? Let's do something like this. Reason being, I need to stick a local weapon controller in here. And as is the case for CRAM, you want to set the engaged vehicles below detection error to minimum. Probably set that to like so. And over on our thing here, we're going to just have, I don't know, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's probably plenty. That's probably too much, actually. Let's just go for 2 for now. Set that to that. Set up your weapon groups. And we're going to set that to 150 meters per second. Mortars, 100 to 150 meters per second usually does the trick, unless you're doing something clever with bomb shoots. I believe the Anvil actually has it lower than that, but the Anvil is a close-range brawler, which you might not want to be with mortars. Your mileage may vary. I tend to find 100 to 150 meters works pretty well. Gives the shell enough time to track the target, but is also not so slow that it can't catch up to it. So let's do prefer high, and that's basically it, really. Let's stick a fuse and some gauge increases on this, because that's a good idea. Let's go have a fuse. Let's go have a fuse, and we're just going to stick an inertial fuse on this because, I don't know, that'll do, pig. That'll do. Bunch of gauge increases on top here, and we've got ourselves a little... Damn it, I did not mean to do that. From the depths, why you lag so much? Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Right. Is that set up properly? Yes, it is. And we've got a reload time of about 22 seconds, which means this is going to hopefully not miss horribly all the time. Alright, so you can add regular barrels, you just got to be aware... You just got to have an even amount of barrels to motorized barrels. Let's see, that inaccuracy is bad, but this is a mortar, so it should track its target quite nicely. Do we have bearing rangefinders? Let's set this up. This seems to be a pretty good detection setup. There is a... I should probably link to the detection tutorial I made some time ago as well, and I really hope to hell that's still up to date. I don't think it's changed. I think we're good. That's always the problem from the devs, is like, you speak on it and it's like, I really hope that's still the case, and the devs did not do a sneaky patch when I wasn't looking. So here we've got our first motor shot. The first one almost always misses, by the way. So I might have to speed up the video at this point here. So you can see like change. Mortars actually would arguably work better on front side. It's just something that very slowly backpedals a lot. And also, I've stuck CRAM mortars on things kind of as an afterthought, and just been jump scared by them, like, I don't know, blowing a turret cap off, like, out of nowhere. So they're the kind of thing that people tend to forget about, and then when they actually do something, it's like, oh, that actually works pretty well. They also have a habit of, like, bypassing active defenses, which tends to be aimed, like, horizontally rather than vertically, so that is an advantage of them. Almost. Unfortunately, that's a lot with mortars. That's why you kind of have to spam them a little bit, and, like, set each one to different AI, or have them staggered. In fact, I should probably do that. One big mortar generally not as good as just spamming lots of smaller mortars, which is the opposite of what you usually want with cram cannons. Oh my word, you're going to miss again, aren't you? One more, come on, come on. I'm having bad RNG today, apparently, in From the Depths. Can you please? Mortars also kind of suck against anything that, like, wiggles back and forth. I mean, crams generally are, but, like, oh no, 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 yes! Okay, so, let's go check at our accuracy rating here. Alright, so it's fired 6 shots, it's hit with 1 of them. That's embarrassing. The thing is, once they do get their iron, they do hit more consistently. It's just... Again, it's very much the cram thing of, like, an extended brawl kind of fight. Not a, like, you know... This is absolutely not the weapon you want for a glass cannon. Something that just, like, immediately annihilates the target. This is, like... This is a siege weapon, basically. It's like, alright, this fight is going to be long because my craft is going to be super durable, and I'm just going to, like, continuously mortar you until you surrender, I guess. And you missed. You horrible, horrible person. I'm going to cheat here, and by cheat I mean I'm just going to replace all this like so we get a nice fast-firing cram, which is, by the way, terrible. Don't do this. It doesn't work well. But I'm sick of waiting for mortars to land. You kind of want to have this nice continuous rain, and that way you can actually, well, that way they'll actually do something. This is very much like with cram mortars, at least, is like the secondary annoying weapon that like blows off superstructure, it pops a turret gap. And once again, mortar is going wiggle, wiggle, wiggle back and forth. We don't like this. Oh my god. Nope, okay, good. That's basically how you set up a mortar. As for further optimization of cram cannons, that is going to have to wait until next tutorial. That one's going to be a long one because there's a lot to talk about. I hope this was helpful. Like, cram bombers are hard. Cram mortars are slightly less hard, but they are kind of hard to use. So it's one of those things, like, both of those things are kind of like, oh yeah, we can do that in this game. I've yet to see a cram bomber that does cram, like, basically is more effective than a missile bomber or a pack bomber when it comes to bombing stuff. Because missile bombers are much more simple to use, they don't need detection or anything like that, and missiles are wonderfully compact, and pack bombers have no hard counters. So, yeah, cram bombers, very niche. Cram mortars, well, they have a niche. You have to, basically, the problem with cram mortars is that they're competing directly with vertically launched missiles for the spot of like what you stick in your spare space for just an extra weapon system that doesn't require a lot of deck space at all. And yeah, missiles generally are a better option, I'm not going to lie, because, you know, they track targets. Missiles do not miss, mortars miss a lot. So, hope that was helpful, and thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon, or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there's fun perks in it for you, like, at the lowest tier, access to a Patreon-exclusive Discord, where you can hang out with me and other cool people. We can talk about mortars, and our successes and failures with them. You, Mortar Shell, are a disgrace to the Cram family. The Cramily, if you will. That one that just blew up the Marauder is less of a disgrace. And do check out my other channels. I have another video game channel, and I have a channel for art stream VODs. Speaking of, I stream on Twitch, From the Depths, other video games, and art, and you should come along and say hello, because it's fun, and we'd love to see you there. And so, thank you so much, and I will see you next time in updated cram tutorials for From the Depths in 2025. Long may they stay updated. Farewell!